Hello, welcome back. This week, I think it's only right that we go talking about the iconic French duo that is Daft Punk. What are your memories of Daft Punk, Jean-Paul, growing up?
That they're French and they wear helmets.
That's enough. Oui, oui. Oui, oui. So the Daft Punk are French electronic duo. I apologise to French people about how I'm pronouncing these names, but Guy-Manuel de Homem-Christo and Thomas Bangalter. I think I did alright there.
Pass.
I think that was justified. So Guy-Manuel wears the gold helmet, and Thomas wears the silver helmet. Just
which one wears the gold helmet and the silver helmet again? There.
Guy-Manuel and Thomas. So they were formed in 1993 in Paris as part of the French house movement. They're generally regarded as one of the most influential acts in dance music history. Really, like they've kind of blended in this whole futuristic look with also odes to the past and odes to like old house music as well. Like they stay very true to the roots of like 70s 80s dance music while bringing in this futuristic theme kind of. So it's kind of like it's very much there to be enjoyed in the moment, I think. Yeah, like I think everybody knows at least one Daft Punk song. Like whatever one it is, everybody knows at least one.
Yeah, and if they don't, they've been sampled to bits. Kanye West has sampled them on numerous occasions. I do prefer Kanye West's stronger. I do prefer that. I won't lie. I do prefer that. I find the other one, not that I don't like the other one, I do like the other one. I find it, less, what would be the word? More boring, we'll say, for lack of a better word. Sorry, okay. Hurting your feelings, Dan.
I disagree.
Hurting your feelings.
Yeah. So, yeah, like I'm a big Daft Punk fan. I have been for years. I just love the way they go about music, really, and the way they approach things. Like the fact that they come from like an indie alternative rock background themselves. They come from that, and they've just experimented and fallen into this like magical place that they found themselves in, really. Like so their first album was released in 1997, 4 years after they were formed. That's called Homework. Some standout tracks: Daft Punk, Revolution 909, and of course probably one of their biggest songs around the world. You're not going to get many more better songs on a debut album.
I think there's a couple of their songs that will be forever in the top 10 of any dance top 10 that's ever done. All Around the World, or Around the World, sorry. There's my Oasis hat back on. Around the World, that's a great tune. As I said before, to Dan before we come on the podcast, I wouldn't be the biggest fan, but that's down to probably not listening to them as much as Dan has, but Around the World I know.
But even you've rolling and scratching, and I think a really, really nice touch that people might not pick up on is there's a song on this album called Phoenix, and both Thomas and Guy-Manuel were originally in a band with the guitarist from the band Phoenix. So that just goes to show where they kind of came from. And then I think they were called Darlin', was the name of the band. And when they stopped, obviously Guy-Manuel and Thomas went on together and made history basically in dance music. And also Phoenix, hats off, very good band.
Very underrated band.
I think, as well.
I would know more Phoenix tunes than I'd know Daft Punk tunes. Which, you know, Daft Punk were much bigger. They were much bigger equity than, you know, Phoenix. But Phoenix are a super band.
Yeah, they are. But I think that just goes to show, like, where their heads were. You know, like, the two lads went this way, and Phoenix progressed into something else, like, very different. Well, they both kind of have, like, Phoenix have a lot of, like, an electronic element to it, and synthesizers and stuff, like, they use. But I think Daft Punk just kind of elevated French music to a different level.
For sure, yeah.
As well. Like, it kind of put French music on the
map. Like, you think of all the dance music and all that, you know, jazz that was happening around Europe at the time. Like, there was a lot going on. There's still a lot going on in the Netherlands, Scandinavia. I think Martin Garrix has been voted the best DJ in the world for the last couple of years. That's down to debate.
I don't know who's,
you know, that's
voting on that, but
that's
wrong,
up for debate. But you know yourself, it's all very mainstream, you know, sort of stuff. But like, there's been a whole load of dance going on. You know, Scandinavia, Avicii, of course, he'll go down as one of the greatest as well. But like, you know, France really catapulted themselves in with Daft Punk, you know, into this whole scene. And like, it wasn't just their music, it was everything about them.
Yeah, I think the whole presence of Daft Punk, you know, like, there's just something in a way eerie, but also like magical about it as well, like, because especially when they took on this whole robot persona as well, like, you know, you knew how rigid it was, but also, like, you knew what to expect, but you also didn't at the same time. Do you know what I mean? Like, their music was, a lot of people might say, oh yeah, a lot of it's very similar. It's really not. Like I don't see it at all. Like, the bases of the songs are very similar, but the progression through their albums, and they're experimenting with different genres, and their use, like, there's no samples really. Like, I'm sure there is a couple, but like, off the top of my head, I think Around the World has a sample in it. But realistically, like, it's one of the biggest dance songs of all time.
They're one of kind of the last,
and
they're one of the kind of last original DJ. You know, like, the 90s brought the last kind of original DJ. You know, you had loads of great DJs in the 90s, but now it's all like, I know you were kind of rolling your eyes at Martin Garrix, because Martin Garrix he's not original in that kind of sense. And I wouldn't be a big dance fan. Dan, I tell you, Dan could probably name about 5 or 6 maybe dance acts I'm big into, and that'd be about it. But I like an original, you know, anything in music, you know. I think if you're just plain and simple copying someone else, you know, there's not really anything great about it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot to be said about, like, how innovative Daft Punk were. Like, I saw a documentary about them before, and I think it was Thomas was DJing in early 90s, like, we say maybe 94, maybe just as Daft Punk was starting to become a thing. They were DJing, and he decided to take the XLR out of the back of the mixing desk, right, and made it all crackly and fuzzy, so all you'd hear was like going on, and he started scratching on a deck with that, and he made a beat and he made a song out of the scratching, but he did it all live in the middle of a gig, like. And I think that just, like, who would have the audacity to do that?
It's unheard of now,
you know?
Like, and you hear all the jokes about a DJ bringing their, you know, USB to a gig. It's very true. That, like, as much as that is a joke and all that, well, a lot of them, I'm not talking about the underground, well, I call them underground DJs who actually, you know, have worked, and when they're paid to play somewhere, they actually play. But like, a lot of the higher end, like, you know, David Guetta has been done for it, Calvin Harris has been done for it, a lot of these boys have been done for it. And like, when you hear a story like that, you know, it's just kind of mental, you know.
Yeah, it just, I think it just shows they really were like a level above. You know, they weren't your typical DJ, they're not your typical dance act, really, like, you know. And the fact that when they're in the studios, like, it's not just they're using a DAW, like a digital audio workplace, like, they're not putting everything through Ableton or everything, like, the bass lines and everything, like, are played by them. Like, they play the drums, they play the bass, they play piano, the synthesizers, you know, they play all these instruments and they create this sound as well. Now, they don't do it live because 2 men, 4 hands, you know, you can't play all that live. But I think they translate it very well to their live shows. Like, obviously, I've never seen them live, and I'm incredibly sad by that. But from videos I have seen, I feel like it does come across like how ingenious they are, you know. And like, their first album, Homework, like, for a first album of this genre, like, you're not really going to get any more standout. Like, a lot of DJs go down the route of releasing singles or like 4-track EPs and stuff. Like, dance albums are a thing of the past. Not for Daft Punk.
Well, late, yeah.
2000,
late,
whatever, 2013.
Of late, since 2013, you know.
Yeah,
really,
but,
you know.
But even in the mid noughties, the whole way through, that kind of died off, the whole album idea for a dance act, and they just weren't giving up on that. And credit to them, I think it paid off in the long run. But yeah, like, just when we're talking about like their whole robot persona and stuff, like, they adopted this in 1999. When they first started, they weren't really into the whole TV interview, publicity, fame, getting their faces out there. It wasn't about that. They wanted to be known for what they do in a studio and behind decks and mixers and all that. You know, they wanted to be known for that. And 1999, they started adopting the whole helmets, gloves, the outfits and everything. I think that brought a real futuristic level to them in a way. And 2000, they said they were fully committed to it, and they were never seen publicly since.
It's a good way of looking at it, like, you know, like, concentrate on the music, don't be concentrating on the people, you know, behind the music, in a kind of sense. Like,
exactly. Like, I feel a lot of artists nowadays wouldn't be as big if it wasn't for their image.
It's all image. And
in a way.
It's kind of a joke, in the kind of sense that, you know, you look at the image, like, to me, like, when you look back at the 90s where Daft Punk came from, the image was that of baggy pants, big jackets, you know, Adidas trainers or Nike or whatever you're into, you know. And that was the look. You know, if you wore something that was actually to your size, what's wrong with you? You know? Like,
yeah. Your size was actually like 3 times bigger than you were supposed to be.
That's all returning now. And that's become the image now that everyone wants. And yeah, it's just very funny. Like, I think the music has gone very, you know, way away from the music, as opposed to where it should be 100% the music. It's not.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think being an artist and a pop star and even a dance act nowadays, it's not about like your music really. Like, look, for example, Chainsmokers, like, their music is like, it's popular, but
not for me, baby, really, like, not for me.
You know, but they've built a career on the image, basically, and they're milking it, really. But this just goes, like, harps back to the whole originality of them. You know, like, they brought this whole anonymous persona kind of thing.
If you think about it, like the last, like, 10, 11 years, like, I can name 2 albums, dance albums, that have done incredibly well. One that broke every record in the book because it had, I think it had 15 number ones on it. 15 UK number ones on it out of 15 songs. Like, That was Calvin Harris, 18 months. Like, that was the last. Like, from what I can remember buying that coming out. And I know you mightn't, like, I don't know who's a fan of Calvin Harris, but I'd be a fan of Calvin Harris, his older stuff. But like that was the last big one, and like, it's unheard of to have that amount of number ones on an album as a dance act is incredible.
But to have that amount of number ones as a dance act in general, let alone on one album,
and you can kind of,
do you know what I mean?
Like, Calvin Harris had a band, behind him before he went. Like not many people remember Calvin Harris pre 18 months album, pre Bounce, we feel so close and all that. Like
like Ready for the Weekend, I'm Not Alone. Like, that was true Calvin Harris, really. Like, even that was leaning more towards the 18 months end of it. But like, I think old Calvin Harris is kind of the end of an era.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Like, I think like, I'd love him to see, like, that's why I'm kind of mentioning Calvin Harris, because of Daft Punk's kind of start, like, where they were in a different genre, kind of, in a sense. I'm not saying Calvin Harris he wasn't a million miles away from, what, well, he was and he wasn't, in that kind of sense. It was dance kind of, it's not dance rock, but dance band kind of thing, like, and it was
a little less commercial.
Oh yeah,
than what he is now,
like, he kind of, I don't know whether it's selling your soul or whatever like that, but he kind of, he was clever with what he was doing, and he went and he DJed, and it's a lot cheaper, for a DJ to do what he's doing than having to bring a touring band around with him. But Daft Punk kind of, I think they came from a similar kind of thing with, I forget your man's name from Phoenix now. Can't remember your man's name. Yeah, but your man from Phoenix, like, it was a different kind of genre of music, and they came in then to revolutionise, try and get this word right. Revolutionise. Well done. The kind of the dance scene, like, but you could probably say the same thing about, like, when I was I don't know why Calvin Harris was brought into this at all, but anyway, I'm going to get this finished in 30 seconds. You could probably say that Calvin Harris revolutionised, along with Avicii, revolutionised the mainstream dance, kind of genre, whereas Daft Punk weren't mainstream dance. Like, when you're looking back at them now, at the time they were mainstream, but I think they'd be called underground now. You wouldn't see them playing. I don't think you'd actually see Daft Punk playing the places they did play if they came out now. I think there's a lot of great DJs that don't play, that wouldn't be playing. Like, now, Coachella, not in a million years. If Daft Punk came out now, they would not be headlining Coachella. The same thing could be said about, a lot of musicians, and all that. But they were to the time, and they came out at the right time. They made their mark, and I think they were right in the end, as sad as it is or whatever, to call it a day. But they never really toured. Any time they did play shows or whatever, there was never an extensive run of shows. It was always, right, we're playing Coachella, we might do a festival in England, might do a festival in Asia, maybe in Australia, South America. It was never like, they never toured on a massive scale, from my recollection,
Yeah, and I think a lot of that was down to how high of a standard they held themselves with regards to a live show and
the money,
production they put on. Because, exactly. Like, I remember the documentary I did watch, they were saying a couple of million was spent on their Coachella set, like, and they wouldn't tell their manager, they wouldn't tell Coachella. They told absolutely nobody except themselves and like 2 or 3 engineers who were helping them build it.
Insane.
And like, they had this idea in their head, and I can't think of any other act that would be let run with an idea for that amount of money without be telling anybody, without running it past anybody, and be allowed to.
It just goes to show how much, like, in fairness, how much, like, the manager or whatever trusted him. Even though, like, I know he didn't know about it, but I'm sure he did know about it. Not to the extent.
No, see, he knew something was happening. He knew they were building something. and he knew this whole. He knew what it was for, when they needed it by, and a general idea of what they wanted to do, but he had absolutely no clue how it was going to turn out or if it would work. And like, this is back in 2006. Do you know, this is like, a lot's changed in the last 15 years with regards to technology and lighting and all of this crack. Like, they hundreds of thousands of LEDs. Like, just the sheer weight. This was thinking, like, the sheer weight of like moving this structure. It's basically a new stage, what they built. And if you haven't seen it, I would recommend just looking up even photos. I sent them to John Paul during the week, and like, it's just madness. Like, if you just type in Daft Punk Coachella set, or like, there's not many videos of the I don't think there's any videos of the whole set or anything, but you get videos of songs here or there, like, and my god, like, it was absolutely madness, and it was so unheard of at the time.
I'd never be one for saying I go to Coachella because I think it's full of pussies, but anyway, but like, that 07 one and the pictures I seen, like, you know, like, yeah, incredible. Nothing like it up until that point. I don't think there's been anything like it since, you know. Well, definitely not in the dance arena, there hasn't, but like, it was just like incredible that they could go under the radar and do that, like, but like, yeah, Coachella, like, I'd just be thinking, like, could they not have done it this side of the Atlantic, you know, maybe even in France or something, you know, in Paris, or, but maybe they couldn't, maybe the logistics weren't there, maybe the whole stage has been made in the States and had to be done there. And like, I think it's kind of sad, the fact that they didn't actually tour with that stage. Maybe the logistics just, you know, they couldn't do it, but like,
I haven't seen photos. I don't know if it's actually feasible.
Have to lift the whole thing at once, like, you know,
to be dragging that around.
You know, taking that apart.
Yeah, just like a big massive helicopter, just a helicopter with this like stage flying underneath it. Like,
where do you want to drop it there? London now, please.
Yeah. So anyway, we move on. Their second album, Discovery. Yeah, One More Time, Digital Love, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger. You said you prefer the Kanye West version. I can't say I agree, but it's not a bad version.
It's a good, I don't mind it.
It's
like, a good use. It's good use of the sample.
It is. It's a great example of, if anybody out there is looking into like how to sample or how to go about sampling, or looking for like examples, you're not gonna get a better one. You don't have to look further than that one. Like,
there's a couple of Kanye ones, like,
it's so simple.
Like, there's that one. There's Touch the Sky as well, which is another. Yeah, like, he's a great man for sampling. Like, that's the thing with him. But back to Daft Punk, I tell you, going off radar.
See, yeah, but just when we're talking about sampling, though, like, sampling doesn't make a song any better or any worse.
No.
It doesn't take away from a song. Do you know? It doesn't mean you're not as creative. It's a different type of creativity.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. No,
as well, you know.
Daft Punk were, you know, like, big boys in the market for the sampling. You know, like, when you think of their song, when, like, you think of the amount of songs that have been taken from Daft. Well, not taken, obviously, but, like, you know, been sampled, adapted. Yeah, that's adapted. The word I'm looking for.
Yeah. But I think, anyway, for me, Discovery is my favourite album by them. Their second album, it was released in 2001, so this is kind of the first album they released with this fully committed robot persona. And like, One More Time, magic. Even the video, like, it fits it so well. Like, if you haven't seen the video, go out and look. It's kind of like this anime style video, like, but it's very, very good video. And you have like Aerodynamic, Digital Love, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger, and Crescendos. Like, Crescendos is a very underrated song, in my opinion, and the way it literally just builds as a crescendo kind of thing. You know, if you know what crescendo is, it's like when music gets louder, kind of, it builds, it gradually expands. I haven't done music theory in about 6 years, but I'm getting there. Yeah, and then like you have like Voyager and Veritas Quo, Short Circuit. Like there's a lot of songs on this album that go under the radar, but I think as an entire whole, it's magnificent. Like even just looking at the big songs, One More Time, Digital Love, Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger.
I think,
you know, I think it's a
like
song.
I do think
accessible.
One More Time will go down as probably the greatest ever song. Like if there's ever a poll done, like One More Time is the essential dance track. Like it's class, and yeah.
I feel like One More Time fits any occasion. Well, bar like funeral, but you know what I mean. Like it appeals to any audience. Like you could be in any situation where you're thinking, "Oh, what song would I put on?" One More Time by Daft Punk never fails.
Yeah, like I think
it never
I
fails.
genuinely think that'll go down as their greatest like gift, kind of, you know, to the world. That song, like it's been used in countless movies. It's been sampled countless times. It's been used on countless ads. Like it's just it's if they just released that song alone, it would have made them some serious dash. Like oh yeah, like yeah. I think I genuinely think like it's obviously the same way people will go on with me, like, you know, Don't Look Back in Anger is the greatest Oasis song, where I disagree, you know. But like One More Time, it's one of the greatest dance tracks of all time. It's definitely Daft Punk's greatest moment, I think.
Yeah, it is. But well, one of.
They had a few. They did have a few.
For me,
but
anyway,
like,
I think it's.
I just think that definitely will be. You know, that song won't be, you know, thrown away.
I think there's only one song that for me that does come close. Like for me personally, I'm not a big fan of the song, but just based on how big it is, like Get Lucky was some thought of a comeback, nearly redemption for them as well in a way, and that just blew up. Like that song was
insane.
Everywhere.
It's the hit of the summer, lad.
Madness. But yeah, that was their second album, Discovery, so obviously One More Time is all you really need to discuss on that album, really. Like next up was Human After All in 2005. Like there is a couple of albums here and there, but they're not really albums. Like they have an album of remixes called like Daft Club, and like there's live albums thrown in here and there, and there's a Tron soundtrack and stuff. So but I'm gonna just try and stick to the 4 main produced albums that they did. Well, they produced them all, but you know what I mean. Like it's more. It shows like
the amount of work that went into these albums. When there was always a good amount. Well, I think anyway, a good amount of time between each album, and the fact that they have been around since '93, and they've released 4 albums basically. Like that's, you know, you'd be hoping there'd be more, you know, in that amount of time, but it just goes to show the amount of work that went into making each album, you know.
Yeah, I think a lot of musicians and artists will fall into the trap of, oh, I haven't released an album in 2 years, I better do something, and they'll release something and they're not fully happy with it, whereas Daft Punk are like, no, I don't give a shit if I don't release one for 10 years. I want it the way I want it.
Like the Stone Roses did it as well. Like the Stone Roses had an album worth of material, and they decided not to release it because it was going to be nowhere near as good as the stuff they put out before. And like I think that's exactly. You know, I feel I've been done a hard hand. You know, I want to hear the material, but at the end of the day, like if you heard it and hated it, you know, yeah,
your opinion's
like
going to change.
Regardless of how good the stuff was before. But Daft Punk did well at that, you know.
But even looking at Human After All, leave Robot Rock, Television Rules the Nation is another one that kind of flies under the radar with a lot of like non-Daft Punk listeners. Is that
yeah,
the right term? Yeah.
I'd be like, in that bracket.
I think if but Television Rules the Nation is an absolutely incredible dance song, and it just kind of, I think the whole message of that song kind of ties in with their whole futuristic element. Like Television Rules the Nation just a ballsy statement to say, especially as the name of the song as well. Like, you know,
my favourite Daft Punk song is on that album. To be Robot Rock. I think Robot Rock is. It's class. It's kind of has a.
Great
I
song.
don't know. It kind of has a Prodigy kind of thing. I don't know. I always got that vibe with it.
It does, yeah.
And I think that's why I love it. I don't know.
And even one of the other songs on it that I think a lot of people will know, Technologic. This one is kind of a, it's, you love it or hate it, I think. Like, it's probably the most simple thing to be released by them, but also the depth and thought process that went into this song. Like, all it is just repeating the same phrase of whatever, like, I don't know how many there is, like 20 instructions, like buy it, use it, break it, fix it, charge it, point it, mix, rewind it, or so, whatever the order is anyway.
It's kind of like having to do that, you know, choose life thing from Train Spotting. It's like, is that the right order?
Oh yeah, choose a fucking big television, choose a washing machine. Yeah, it's like that, like, but I just think it's genius the way they did it. And like, realistically, that entire song, the melody, the beat, the bass, all comes from the voice, comes from this whole like robotic kind of voice. Now I know there is obviously you have your kicks and your 808s and everything in it, but it's driven really like by these phrases being said in this way, and the speed and the consistency of it. Like, I think that's an underrated song by them, I think, and I think a lot of people dismiss it based on the first 10-15 seconds of it, but get through it. I promise you it's good, it's worth it.
If Dan says so, it is.
Yeah, so then, like, that was 2005. They released Random Access Memories, which was their fourth album in 2013. But in the meantime there, they had this somewhat of a weird kind of period, I think. Like, they were obviously thinking about their next album. Like, Random Access Memories was a long process, and it was thought out over many years with incredible artists involved as producers, as featured artists. But in the meantime, like, they had like Music Volume 1, which was kind of just somewhat of a greatest hit so far kind of thing. Then you had the live album Alive in 2007. That won a Grammy for Best Electronic Dance Album. That was their first album, first Grammy, not their first album. Yeah, and then 2010 came, and I think this was a stroke of genius by the film studio. I can't remember who it was, but the movie Tron, the soundtrack, they just gifted this movie to Daft Punk and said, right, give us songs. And I think if you were to pick any sort of style of movie that Daft Punk are perfectly suited for, it's this whole Tron idea with like the whole like the lights, the futuristic elements. Do you know, Daft Punk just was the perfect. Daft Punk and Tron was like a perfect marriage, really, in a way. And I think it's one of them movie soundtracks that just go under the radar, but deserves a lot of credit about how well it all fits together. It's like a hand in glove kind of thing. But yeah, that was kind of just 2006 to kind of 2011. 2012, there wasn't really much going on for them, and then, well, obviously there was behind the scenes, but publicly. And then 2013 for me is an absolutely incredible album, incredible release, is Random Access Memories, and it has some phenomenal artists and producers, and like just the collaborations on this album alone would make your hair stand on your neck. Like, you have the song Giorgio by Moroder. For anyone who doesn't know who Giorgio Moroder is, he is kind of dubbed the grandfather godfather of the synthesizer, kind of. Like, he was involved with I Feel Love by Donna Summer, Holiday Madonna. Like, he's had a lot of these synth driven tracks, and relatively unknown who he is. And I think it was a lovely tribute that Daft Punk decided to release this song called Giorgio by Marauder, and it's a very Marauder kind of sound to it as well. But we move on to some of the bigger songs on it. Like, you have a man who we have seen live, the one and only Julian Casablancas, featuring on Instant Crush. Another good song. When it came out, I was like, that is a weird combination of acts. Do you know, like, it's kind of an unthought
but you can barely
crossover
see it though.
in a way,
you can
but
see it though,
really
can't
does
you?
work. Yeah, you can. Yeah, you can see how their musical minds will work together very well. But I wouldn't have thought about it before it happened.
No, definitely not. No.
Do you know what I mean? I wouldn't have said, oh yeah, the Strokes and Daft Punk. Oh yeah, that would definitely work. But now that it has been done, I kind of want more. Do you know? They've kind of left us there being like, oh, well, it was good. It was so good. You can, like, do more. But anyway, I think probably the big ones on this are Pharrell Williams getting involved. At the time, 2013, even now, like, Pharrell Williams is one of the biggest names in the business. Not only as a performer, but as a producer
as well, actually.
But just, yeah, that there we go again with the whole image based. But we're not. That's not the point of this podcast.
Well, you can't see us, so.
Yeah, but Pharrell Williams was involved in "Lose Yourself to Dance."
Good tune. Yeah.
Great song. I think it's a nice, uplifting, kind of feel good dance track. But of course, we can't really talk about this album really without talking about the absolute powerhouse of a song that was "Get Lucky." Like, "Get Lucky" just kind of took over the world for
really
a year.
did, yeah. Like, I'll always remember, like, I don't know, when I joined Twitter, there was this great running joke every single year. It was like, you know, taking the piss out of, you know, boys that would recommend music to people, but did not necessarily take that recommendation from that person, you know. But, it's like, I recommend listening to Daft Punk, Get Lucky, hit of the summer. And this would be tweeted every single year since it's been released. You know, and it's very funny.
And you know what?
It does,
stands the test of time, though. You know, it's that kind of song. Like, it's, in my opinion, it's incredibly overplayed. It took the joy out of it, but when it comes on, it's the kind of song, like, it's one of them overplayed songs that, like, it comes on, I'm not really arsed.
To be honest, it's that long since I listened to it. I actually fancy listening to it this evening. And I will.
Go on.
That,
we'll have a listening
and
party.
Lose Yourself to Dance. The two of them. I actually forgot Lose Yourself to Dance was on that. And I have that Pharrell Williams vocal just going over. Lose Yourself to Dance. Had to do it, Dan. I'm sorry, I had to do it.
Yeah. No, it's okay. It's okay. I hear they're doing. I would love if they came back and released an album, and
I think I could pull it off. You know.
Imagine. You could. You could pull off one of Pharrell's hats as well.
If it was a bucket hat, I definitely could.
Oh yeah. But whatever about Pharrell Williams being involved, I think for me the key to the success of Get Lucky was Nile Rodgers. Obviously Daft Punk as well, but Nile Rodgers, his involvement, he brought that whole disco element. You know, like Chic, one of the biggest disco out, like soul, whatever you want to call them, but like everybody knows Good Times with Chic
and the Freak,
and
you know them two songs.
Yeah, you know, like these songs are just known by everybody, and the fact that Nile Rodgers is once again involved in this global phenomenon of a song
It's no surprise.
It's no
Like we
you know,
we seen. You've seen them as well, Dan. I think Chic, they played Electric Picnic a couple of years ago, and they did play Get Lucky, and just hearing it without the kind of the dance element kind of thing in the background, and that like and just hearing the isolated guitar and Nile Rodgers was amazing. The whole set was amazing. To be fair, it was one of them, you know, kind of moments like, you know, I've seen Chic kind of way, but Nile Rodgers definitely. Like, it sounds, and for someone or anyone who's listening to this and doesn't play guitar and he thinks, you know, it does sound simple what he's doing, but it ain't. It is very difficult to play, and he's a genius. He's a true genius.
He is. He's a really underrated guitarist. I think he doesn't get a lot of credit
he's known more
for what he does.
Like, if you were to picture, like I. Yeah, like I think like if you were to have a Fender Stratocaster on your screen and you told someone, right, who does that remind you of? There'd be a few names, but you know, Nile Rodgers would definitely.
Nile Rodgers is not at the top.
No,
Nile Rodgers is nowhere near the top,
but like
for a lot of people.
Genuine music people, you know, would say, yeah, Nile Rodgers in there.
Yeah.
You know, he wouldn't be the first name I'd say, but definitely Nile Rodgers would be, you know, in that list. Like
like his Strat
the
is so
gold
iconic
and white
as well.
Strat,
Like,
I'd love them myself, you know.
Yeah,
they're gorgeous.
Lovely. But yeah, that album, like for me, it's hard to look past it as Daft Punk's greatest album. Like, it had won 5 Grammys. Like, that's a hell of a lot for one album.
Like, I think if you win 5 Grammys, like for an album,
so
it'd be hard shot not to call it your best album, you know.
Yeah, exactly. Even a lot of bands
I
take
one
half
Grammy. I take a quarter Grammy. Take a fucking £1 Grammy. Yeah,
just take the engraving.
I take any part of a Grammy, you know. Yeah,
I just want to go. Just go to
like
go to the ceremony,
you know.
But yeah, it was released in 2013. 2014 it won Album of the Year, and Get Lucky won Record of the Year. No surprise really.
I don't think there's any surprise really any year with that Record of the Year bollocks. But I was delighted to see that, you know, a song actually did, a genuine song got one, you know.
Yeah, and it wasn't necessarily like a pop artist album.
It's not a natural, like,
it's good to see.
The only thing that makes it anyway pop, I think, that song, is the fact that Pharrell is singing it. Like, if it was someone else singing it, you know, like if it was a rock artist or a fucking, I don't know, you know, an alternative artist singing it, I don't think it would have went down into the pop category, to be honest. I think it would have been disco funk, and that's I think that's the real genre that song is in, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. I think it's just the 808s and Daft Punk's introduction into it kind of made it more dancey, but phenomenal album. Like, but what annoys me is that they haven't done anything since, and then all of a sudden, like 8 years later, they're just like, oh yeah, we're done. By the way, like, come on, lads, I'm waiting 8 years for something. Just give me something.
Something.
You know? Even a single before you go.
I don't think you've heard the last of them, to be honest. I think, like,
no,
I don't know whether it'll be Daft Punk. Like, like it could be the last of them. You don't know, but like, it could be on.
It's not the end of Guy-Manuel.
You'll hear more music from them too, and I'm sure it.
Whether it's them releasing themselves or producing.
Well, they haven't done a bad job producing, you know, stuff, and like, I don't think I don't know. I think they're the type of guys that would actually just leave something where it's meant to be left in their minds and go with another project, you know. And that could be them. And I don't think anything that they do from now till whenever they pop their clogs is going to be like incredibly dissimilar to what they've done with Daft Punk. They'll want to, you know, I'm not going to say revolutionise music, because there's nothing much to be revolutionised in music anymore. I think rejuvenate, you know, maybe like would be a better word to use. Like there's not many of them classic dance acts that are still going, you know, like, to be fair. It's like, to be honest, I'm surprised they stopped. Considering they don't tour they never toured an awful lot. There's loads of time between albums. Like, it's because they don't have to. Like, you know, they can set on their money. You know, in that kind of sense. But when you think of the dance acts we've seen, like Chemical Brothers, people like that, like Chemical Brothers, like every album they tour extensively, and even when they don't have an album coming out, they're still playing gigs, which I don't know whether they have to. Maybe it's because they love it, and they kind of as well. I don't know. No, I'd like to see it, to be honest. I'd like Alone, to be honest, but like a tenor, yeah, like
even a tenor.
Like of course they use the robots as well, and they're very good with their own robot style as well. You know, the graphics.
Yeah, like hats off to them as well. I do just think Daft Punk brought it to a different level in a way, but like obviously Chemical Brothers are relatively similar with their whole like big production. They put on this big show and it's heavily based on visuals, but I think Daft Punk were kind of groundbreaking in a way. Like they were the first kind of people who were like, no, let's change ourselves as well. Like you see Chemical Brothers on the stage and it's just like these two dancing weddings, like, or wedding dancing uncles. Uncle dancing weddings, wedding dancing uncles on stage with a load of music equipment, and you're not even looking at them. You know, you're looking at what's going on. No, obviously you do pay attention to them as well, but like the main thing is the screen and the size of the production. Whereas with Daft Punk, it's all encapsulated in one as well. And like,
what me and Dan are trying to say is, if you haven't seen Daft Punk live, fear not, go to the Chemical Brothers. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think even when they were going, you still had a better shot at going to see the Chemical Brothers than you would seeing Daft Punk. Considering Daft Punk could probably play.
Yeah.
I don't know the whole touring history, but they might play 4 or 5 times a year.
If
you
even,
know, like
if even 4 or 5 times every decade. You know,
that was the mystery about them,
played,
and they kept that going till the end. I don't think you've heard the end of them, to be quite honest. I think, like,
no,
you know, money talks as well. Money does talk. They were never about the money, but if some funds start to dry up, you might see them back.
Yeah, and we're just going on when we're talking about like them being finished. Like a possible avenue they could look into is like being producers, and a couple of songs which we've already heard them on as producers are like some of the Weekend stuff, like Starboy and I Feel It Coming. For anyone who didn't know, like Billboard is the charts, well, one of the charts in America. Daft Punk didn't have a number 1 Billboard hit until Starboy by the Weekend,
like,
which is madness. It's madness when you think about all of the stuff.
I definitely think like, the Weekend and Daft Punk, like, they could have done an album. Like I love Starboy. I think the whole album. Starboy is the name of the album as well, and I love that album. I think there's so many good songs on it, and like, of course, the Super Bowl performance by the Weekend 2 weeks ago or wherever it was. It was the greatest, one of the greatest Super Bowl performances ever, in my opinion. Definitely the best of the last, I don't know how long, because they've been pretty rotten of late. But like Daft Punk and The Weeknd together doing the whole album would be pretty incredible, I think. You know.
I think the Daft Punk could join forces with The Weeknd, and
yeah, it could be, yeah.
Daft Weekend,
Punk Weekend.
Yeah. Yeah, so just like Rolling Stone listed them as the 12th greatest duo of all time. I think there's a bit.
Well, who was named above them? You know, you've a lot of duos, famous duos from, you know, you've Simon and Garfunkel, you've I'm sure, what is it? The White Stripes.
White Stripes.
Now I'm gone blank, to be honest. Like, Simon and Garfunkel.
Well, I know loads, but they're definitely not going to be in like the top 10. Do you know, they're not going to be above Daft Punk, like Slaves.
Yeah.
No disrespect
No,
to
but
Slaves, but they're
a lot of
definitely
the
not
old,
be
like,
ahead of Daft
I
Punk.
don't know, Ike and Turner. I'm sure they're up there.
Yeah.
Simon and Garfunkel, of course, like, you know, they're one of the most influential acts of all time. Like,
Yeah.
like, I don't know who else, to be honest. I'm trying to think off the top of my head on a kick myself, you know, not knowing who the top 10 is, but I can guarantee you them two are probably fairly high up the list, you know. I don't think 12 is harsh, to be honest. You'd have to look at who's above them. You'd have to look at who's above them,
10.
you know. And who they're actually counting as duos. Are they actually counting duos like if you get what I mean, like a duo like Lennon and McCartney, as in they'd write together, you know? Is that the way they're counting it, or, you know, that's the way you'd look at it? You have to have a look and see, like, you know, if that's the way they're doing it. But I wouldn't count it. Like, if it was songwriting duos, yeah, that's where, you know, Lennon and McCartney come in. But no, I think 12 out of, you know, 7 billion is alright. Oh, sorry.
No, 3.5 billion. Sure, it's the duo. There's two. You have to halve it, lad. Yeah, so the reason we chose to do Daft Punk is, I'm sure everybody has heard the news lately that, like, they've split after 28 years. It's not the end of them. I don't believe it is. Well, it could be the end of Daft Punk as we know it, but knowing them and their track history, they'll do something.
I can feel it coming.
Very good, very good. Do you know what? They will be back harder. They'll be back better.
I don't know whether it'll be faster, to be honest.
Faster, and they'll be a lot stronger. No, they're getting old now.
Oh.
They might be back one more time. Anyway, how about that one? Who knows? They might go on a tour around the world.
God almighty.
Right, that's before we get crucified for our puns. Yeah, so that's Daft Punk.
Yes.
That's that. One of the biggest things ever to come out of France. That and Thierry
I was
Henry's
going to say Henry Hoover's, but anyway.
Yeah, that too.
No.
Are they French?
Henri Hoover's.
Alright, fair enough. Okay. Yeah,
he
fair.
jumped.
Thierry vacuum. Right. Yeah, we leave you with this Daft Punk. So, Daft Punk, rest in peace. And stop.
Behind the clouds.